It was an emotional reunion for Mark Obama, a rare meeting with his half-brother, who's also the U.S. president.
I don't know him well. I met him for the first time a couple of years ago. He stopped by with his wife for about 5 minutes during the trip. I haven't read the book, but it's no secret that my father was a troubled person.
You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA, the number here. Our mystery guest. Julia said someone did correctly identify our mystery guest, who will stay on hold and will award him... Well, we're still trying to track down that screenshot of the colonoscopy, but don't worry. You will get your swag for guessing correctly. You know the president has an unusual family background, President Obama. And one of his half-brothers, Mark Okoth Obama Ndesandjo, is a consultant. He is an author, a novelist, and now an autobiography. And he runs the Mark Obama Ndesandjo Foundation that helps a variety of causes and individuals. He's a acclaimed and accomplished pianist. Does a lot of work with orphans, which I love because of know my work with orphans. And he is joining us now on the Laura Ingraham Show, the President of the United States half-brother, Mark Ndesandjo. Mark, great to talk to you. How are you, sir?
Hello, Laura. It's an honor to be on your program.
And,
I'm fine, thank you. Greetings from Kenya.
And you're in Kenya now. I kept thinking you were in China, but you're in Kenya now?
I'll be back in China in a couple of weeks, Laura. I just came to spend some time with my family over Christmas and the holidays. Happy New Year. Happy
New Year. And your book, Nairobi to Shenzhen, came out in October of 2009. That was a novel. And you wrote that to kind of raise awareness about domestic violence, and you gave percentage of those profits to a number of charities in your foundation. And now this new book is called Cultures, My Odyssey of Self-Discovery. It's coming out in February. And I have to tell you, Mark, you're about a contemporary of mine. You went to Brown University. I went to Dartmouth.
My goodness.
We're about the same age. And you,
wow.
So you're basically my vintage. I'm a little older than you, but you're basically my vintage. And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, if I made it public that you were coming on my show, which is why I didn't promote it, the White House would have figured out a way to stop this interview. Okay, that's what I think probably would have happened.
Really?
And I have to say, I've met your half-brother a couple of times, and he's kind of made a couple of jokes to me, like, "Oh, I'm your favorite person." I was like, "Oh, come on, Mr. President." I was just laughing with him. It was at an event. But so why did you write this new book? Because look, your brother had said that he had met you one time. And one of the many things that you end up correcting in your book is that fact that he recounted in interviews and also wrote about in Dreams of My Father, his book.
Correct. Well, first of all, I want to say I'm really happy to be on your program. I've heard good things about you, and I know you've got a big heart, particularly with regard to children. I wanted to say that, some of the things, my brother told me something a couple of years ago, and it was very moving because it was the first time we reconnected after we first met in 1988. He said, "Mark, live your life your own way. It will not influence the election. Don't worry about me." And, we're family, and I see him as my brother. I don't see him as the president most of the time, and that's where the book actually comes from. Now, I've had very intense meetings with him. Some have been very elating, very, very, very inspiring, and others have been very intense and also disappointing. And I'm really trying to be as honest as I can in my book, because I believe that it's important, because it's history. That
why did he say, Mark? Mark, hold on. Why did he say they only met you once? You've met him on a number of occasions. Why once did he say he only met you?
Laura, I heard that after the meeting we had in Beijing, and I can't tell you I was floored by it. I don't know why he said it, and I talk about it in the book. In fact, I opened the book with that sentence, and I think in that sense he was being president and not being my brother. And I have thought about it, and I've really wondered why he said that. That was something which disappointed me.
Well, but is he ashamed? Is there something he's ashamed about? Is he ashamed of his connection to you or his other half siblings? I mean, there's other half sibling with another mother in living in a dirt hut in Kenya that he's spoken to like once, I think. But your family not talking to you or not acknowledging you it's kind of tough.
Well, the ironic thing is that that meeting that we had in 2008, which was the first meeting we had in around 25 years, was actually one of the most elating experiences of my life. And we hugged, and I really felt he was my brother. We first met in 1988. And I think what happens is that, it's hard for me to wrap my ears around what I heard that particular day. But I also think that my brother has got tremendous pressures, and I hope that at some point that my writing doesn't alienate him, because I think that was probably part of it. I was open about things in our family, and I really feel this is something we must do, because a lot of people don't know about the Obama family. A lot of people don't know about children who go through some of the things that we went through around the world because we don't want to talk about it. And that's something which we must do, because we owe it to future generations and our kids and your kids too, Laura.
Right, but he wasn't abused, you don't allege, by Barack Obama Sr. He only met him, really a few times, right? And that sad picture of Barack Obama once with his father, your father, I should say, but you don't allege that he was abused.
No, I don't do that. Our story begins around 50 years ago. We have the same father, white American mothers. We're both American. We were separated by birth by a few years. As babies, literally, we were probably ripped apart by violence or by neglect. His, the absence of a father. Mine, the presence of a father.
The absence of a father was a big deal in someone's life, and it can define you. And it can change you, and it can make you look for love in all the wrong places, too, I should say. This is something, Mark, let me just play something for our listening audience, and I know you've probably heard this. This is President Obama speaking about your father.
He had an alcoholism problem that he didn't treat his families very well. And, so obviously it's a sad part of my history and my background, but it's not something that I spend a lot of time brooding over.
That's not coming to terms with it enough for you?
Well, for me, I always speak for myself. I wrote the book to tell my story, not have other people tell it for me. As in Dreams of My Father, there were stories about me and my family, which I felt needed to be corrected, and other details, which I tried to do. I think we see things in different ways. In a sense, we're both like Siamese twins with eyes on different sides of our head. Sometimes we don't see each other, and other times we do. But in spite of that, I do love my brother, and I know that he loves us. But I wish in some ways that he was closer, even as he's president. And I hope that someday he will understand that the writing that I'm doing was actually inspired by him, and regardless, will make a little bit of a difference to families around the world.
We're talking to Mark Ndesandjo, who is the half-brother of President Barack Obama. He lives primarily in China. He's a consultant for businesses. He's a pianist. He's a philanthropist. And he sought out in his new book, which comes out in just a few weeks, called Cultures, My Odyssey of Self-Discovery. He seeks to both come to terms with the abuse that Barack Obama Sr. meted out on his family and with the president, obviously the neglect of not being there at all, but to correct the record of what Barack Obama had written in his book, Dreams of My Father, about Ruth, who is Mark's mother. Specifically, Mark, the alcohol-fueled beatings of your mother by Barack Obama Sr. What did you witness? What specific instances did you witness?
Well, I remember moments when I was woken in the middle of the night, and this, and I could see the orange light in the living room, and I could hear the thuds and the screams, and it was something which was terrible because I would go to the living room and I would see my mother, on the floor, my father, and I wouldn't be able to protect her. And this is something which you never forget, especially, I remember my mother's legs most particularly. You know why? Because I was small, and that's the only thing that I could clutch. And it was something which really affected me for a long time. But that said, we're both mixed-race children and adults. And I think, we've had very, very bumpy passages. And my book has an appendix which corrects a lot of abuse my father. But that is one part of the book. A lot of the book talks about, as you know, Laura, the importance of traveling across different cultures as a mixed-race child in China, Kenya, and America.
We're talking to Mark Ndesandjo. When we come back, more with him about his book, his charitable work, and that's a tough odyssey, instructive in many ways. We all come from families that are imperfect. All of our families are imperfect, I might say, but witnessing domestic abuse.
A lot of them have, yes.
It could be verbal abuse, could be other types of abuse. It is incredibly important to acknowledge it as adults, whether to your close friends or to other family members. And it does change you. And this is a tough thing. It's very difficult. This is outside of politics, by the way. But it is interesting that when you write a political memoir, the facts get kind of shaded, and instead we create a composite experience for the benefit of the public and perhaps for a political future. We'll talk about that. Delighted to have him on with us. And Mark Okoth Obama Ndesandjo will stay with us from Kenya here on The Laura Ingraham Show.
The Laura Ingraham Show.
And the interesting thing about the African American experience in this country is that we are sort of a mongrel people. I mean, we're all kind of mixed up.
Yeah. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Apparently, Mark Ndesandjo is still in transit in Kenya. But, well, you heard his comments on the show. Of course, he's the half-brother of Barack Obama. And he hasn't given many interviews. But lots of mistakes in that Dreams of My Father. Lots of things that were written that he challenges directly. And he is the son of Ruth, who's still alive, living in Kenya. And point by point, he goes through and says, look, he says, I love my brother. I want us to have another relationship where we are hugging, basically hugging it out. The White House, I say the White House, the president reportedly is none too happy about this book that he's written. Very unhappy because, first of all, it keeps the kind of family struggles in the limelight. And second of all, he thinks, well, his half-brother's just dining out on his presidential notoriety. And look, the devil's advocate question is, no one would care about you if you weren't Barack Obama's half-brother. Well, that's true, but you could say that about a lot of authors, right? You could say that about a lot of people. You could say that about CNN hosts. Would anyone be hiring Chris Cuomo, God bless him, if he weren't, a Cuomo, right? So this is where we are. So anyway, 855-40-LAURA, the number here. And so the question is, do you learn anything about someone's leadership style because of the way they recast their upbringing? And we're joined again by Mark Okoth Obama Ndesandjo. His book, Cultures, coming out in just a few weeks. It'll be linked up on lauraingraham.com. Enormous amount of work for wonderful charities, orphans, and basically a concert-level pianist, which I find the coolest thing of all. Hey, Mark, I'm glad you're back with us. I don't know if you heard what I said, but
not at all.
We touched back on the issue of leadership styles, and politically, are you kind of in tune? Politically, are you kind of in tune with what your brother is trying to do in the United States? Are you guys kind of on the same political page, or no?
That's a great question, Laura. For me,
well, yes or no?
I tend to focus more on the on the art side.
Okay.
And politically, I think I'm really focusing on some of the issues that really people agree on. And that is about trying to do a little bit of help children and bring art to kids with a foundation. But I would say that I support my brother. He's my brother, and family is family.
He doesn't seem to support you, though. I mean, with all due respect, he doesn't seem to support you. I mean, he spends a lot more time with Beyonce and Jay-Z than he does with your family.
You have a point. You have a point. But at the end of the day, what I do is I just try to focus on a few simple things that make life meaningful. And part of them is, I'm a person, some of the things which you do yourself. And I think those are the things which ultimately bring you back to reality. And Barack has tremendous problems, tremendous pressure. I can't speak for him. I can only speak for myself and tell my story and not have other people tell it for me.
And again, in Dreams of My Father, he did tell the story of your mother and Barack Obama Sr., and told the story of your one meeting, and you said it wasn't one meeting. You met him back in Kenya, and back in Kenya in the 80s, you said he was trying to get in touch with his African side, and he was seemed a little bit ill at ease with your embracing of the Western culture. So you were getting in touch with your white side. He was getting in touch with his black side. Is that accurate?
That's a brilliant observation. Yes. Because basically what happened is we were both, headstrong guys. He was going to Harvard, I was going to Stanford. And, I think I was trying to forget a lot of the things that I associated with my African side. I was an American living in Kenya, and my father had impacted me so much. I just associated myself with the Obama name and everything associated with that. He, on the other hand, I think, was trying to find his African roots as an American who had been raised in white America. And so I was looking for my Western roots, and I really valued Chopin, Beethoven, and so forth.
Hey, Mark, we're going to have you. Mark, we're going to have you back tomorrow if you can come on with us tomorrow. We got to keep this conversation going, but we're out of time. I hate doing that to you. Thanks for listening to this podcast excerpt of The Laura Ingraham Show. If you'd like to receive podcasts of our complete shows, go to lauraingraham.com and sign up to become a member of Laura 365. Our Laura 365 members get commercial-free streams and podcasts of our shows every day we're on the air. And also, you can listen to the last 30 days of The Laura Ingraham Show. Be ahead of the curve. Join Laura 365.